Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness podcast. Today we radiate growth with Dr. John Demartini, human behavioral specialist, who is featured in the film How Thoughts Become Things. You've heard recently from Doug Vermeeren on this podcast, who is the director of that film, and now it's a book that is available. So welcome, Dr. Demartini. I'm so glad to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
You do so many things. I mean, human behavioral specialist is, I feel like if we have to say something, we'll use that. You're so much more than that. You offer so much more than that. You've got some special programs, some signature programs that you do as well. What do you consider is the heart of what you do?
Since 1972, I've had a dream to learn as much as I can, research as much as I can on anything that will maximize human awareness and potential, anything that develops consciousness and makes more self-mastery and contribution. So I know that sounds vague, but that's really what it is. So anything, I've been blessed to be able to work in the general field of human behavior, but we help people wake up creativity and innovation and genius when it comes to corporations or innovations or technologies. We help people in business development. We help people in financial management, family and relationship, communication management, social leadership management. We're involved in overall well-being and physical self-discipline management of your own physical well-being. And being inspired, how to live by priority and be inspired and do some mission on the planet. So it's taken me into many areas. I've gotten to speak to governments, corporates, sports teams, educational institutions, you name it, I've been there. And it's just inspiring. I've been doing it 49 years. So that's what I lived in.
Amazing. Well, you must be very good at it by now because you've been in it for such a long time. And I know that you are truly one of the top names in growth and inspiration and consciousness even. But how did you decide that you wanted this to be your mission?
Well, I was born with some learning disabilities. And I ended up dropping out of school. I was a street kid as a young teenager. I lived on the streets till I was 18.
Oh my.
Almost 18. And decided that the only thing I was pretty good at is standing on a surfboard. So I became a surfer. And I was in Texas, and Texas wasn't the surf capital. So I hitchhiked to California when I was 14 and down into Mexico surfing. And then 15, I made it over to the North Shore, and I lived on the North Shore where the big waves were.
Right.
And I rode big waves. And then I nearly died at 17, almost 18. And in the recovery of that, I was led to a little health food store and then eventually this little yoga class. And there I met a gentleman named Paul C. Bragg, who one night in 1 hour inspired me to do something more with my life. And that was the first night I ever thought that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and learn how to read and speak properly. Because I had speaking problems. I had a speech impediment as a child, and I couldn't read. I didn't read till I was 18. And then, so I decided to try to go back and learn how to do it. I took a GED, which is a high school equivalency test, and miraculously got through that and tried to go back to school. And it was a slow process. I had to learn to read dictionaries and proper spelling and pronunciation. We really worked on it. We memorized 30 words a day until my vocabulary was strong enough to start to comprehend some things.
Wow.
And I went on to finish schooling eventually, and then go on for almost 10 years of college, and went on to be involved in human behavior and healthcare, and anything to do with biology and psychology and human behavior and health and philosophy. I was fascinated by it. And so and then I started teaching. I was amazing. Anybody that would listen to me, I was so grateful. I thought anybody that would hear me, that's got to be something. But I wanted to learn, and whatever I learned, I wanted to share. And I guess I've never stopped doing that. I still love doing that every single day. I do it every single day, 7 days a week. I'm doing some sort of a interview, presentation, webinar, keynote speech, conference, or something. I love researching, learning, and sharing. And I've been doing it all these years.
Right. That's quite a long time. So have you ever gone back to talk to those who believed you couldn't do anything?
Well, my first grade teacher, I had to wear a dunce cap when I was 6 years old, 7.
I didn't realize that was
They had dunce caps in those days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that was in 1960. And my teacher said, look, she had my parents come to the school and said, I'm afraid your son's never going to be able to read or write, not going to communicate effectively. He's not going to probably go very far, amount to much. Put him into sports because he can stand up and he can run real well. And I was born with a deformed arm and leg, and so I had to wear braces till I was 4. When I got out of them, all I wanted to do was run. And so the teacher was right. I wanted to run. I wanted to so that I could run straight. And so I was good at running. I was good at balance, and surfing became my thing. I started surfing when I was 9, and I figured out somehow I stood up on a board the very first time I ever went out in the water, and I just had a knack for that. And so that wasn't academics that was my thing. It was standing on a surfboard, and it wasn't. I didn't read anything. I just looked at pictures. I could look at pictures of surf and pictures of pretty girls. I was pretty good at that. but words weren't my thing until I turned, 18 years old. And then I took off. I started memorizing dictionaries, memorizing encyclopedias. I read 8 complete sets of encyclopedias once I learned how to read. And I never stopped reading. I've read over 30,500 books now. And I just read, learn and learn and learn. And I try to share as much as I can. And lo and behold, people started asking me for help. And my teaching career started by the time I was 8. Before I was even finished my 18th year, I was teaching. And I started out with 1 student and 2 students and 3 students and 15 students. And by the time I was in the University of Houston, I'd have 100 to 150 students every day under the trees with a discussion on various topics, or in the library, or in the cafeteria if it rained. And I just never stopped. I started teaching every single day, and I've been doing it ever since, and I still do it to this day.
You do. Yeah, you absolutely do. And I was first aware of you through Stephen Sanders, who's a very dear friend of mine, and who had taken one of your programs and just was so impressed. And then your name keeps popping up almost everywhere since then, which is really fun. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I know that guy. I've heard of him. And so what did you first start teaching when you sat under the tree at the University of Houston?
Well, let me share a funny story. I was taking yoga because the night I met Paul Bragg, the guy that inspired me, it was at a yoga class. So I started doing yoga when I was just not even 18. And so I was doing it just for myself, just because I thought it would help me in my health and help me focus, and meditation. He told me meditation could be helpful in centering yourself. Mm-hmm. And I had this 375-pound Afro-American woman come up to me and ask me if she could learn yoga from me. And I thought, hell yeah. Anybody that would like to learn from me, why not? And I looked at her, and she was a big girl, and I was like going, I don't know if you can do yoga, but I'll do what I can.
Right.
And that was my first student. And then I had a Persian man want me to teach him meditation. And then I had some kids ask me to tutor them on algebra because I was learning algebra. And I was more diligent than a lot of students were just taking classes for granted. I wanted to learn. And so when I was studying, I really was focused and I wanted to learn. And so that became something I taught. Almost every class that I was taking, I ended up giving tutoring before test because people were wanting to learn. By the time I was at the University of Houston, it started out as just people asking me questions. They would see me doing yoga under the trees, and they would be curious about it. Who's this meditative guy that's doing yoga? And they would come up and ask questions. And it would start on philosophy, yoga, health. And then it got deeper as my brain was getting, broadened by my studies. It seemed like I was attracting people that would ask questions based on whatever I was studying. It was like these synchronicities are happening.
Right.
And then we'd have, sometimes it would swell up. We'd have 100, 150 people a day under the trees. And sometimes it swelled like 400 people. So we had these discussions that would go on until I had to go to the next class. And it would be varied. I don't know where it would go. You never know what the questions would be. It could be topical questions. And I would tell them, I don't know, but I'll find out by tomorrow. And it became just a thing where people didn't even care what it was. It was just whatever. We would have great discussions, and I was entertaining and inspiring to them because I really wanted to learn. And I wanted to make sure I shared something that was meaningful. And to this day, I got people. I've spoken now in 155 countries, and I've got students in every country around the world today. We've got students every single country now. And so I've been blessed. That's spread across the world.
Yeah. And when you first started, though, I mean, coming from a background of having braces on your arm and leg, speech impediment, speech deficiency, reading deficiency, learning, people telling you had a learning deficiency, where did you have the courage, the confidence to say, yes, I can teach others?
Well, I just wanted to learn first.
Right.
And then what happened is I was focused on that. I wasn't really focused yet on teaching. But when people started asking me, I guess what happened is they'd see me in school and they would see me doing yoga and they're intrigued, or they'd see me doing meditation. And where I was, no one was doing that. So it was kind of an odd thing in the 1970s, early 70s. And then by the time I was getting along around after a year, I was learning 30 words a day in vocabulary. And so by the end of the year, that's 1,000 extra words. And then in 2 years, that's 2,000 words. But then I was also reading encyclopedias. Any word I didn't know, I would look it up and study it and memorize it. And I was growing my vocabulary. And all of a sudden, from the bottom of the class, the first time I ever took a test, I got a 27. And from the bottom of the class, I rose to the top. And people then started thinking, this guy's pretty dedicated student, maybe we ought to hang out with him and learn from him. And they'd ask questions, and it was spontaneous. It wasn't like, okay, I'm now going to teach. But then by the time I went to a professional school, I started formalizing courses, classes. I would get up in the morning at 2:00. I'd do meditation and yoga till 2:30. I would then speed read, because by then I was speed reading. I learned how to speed read after a while. And from not knowing how to read to eventually excelling at it. And then I would read 4 to 7 books sometimes in the morning by 6:30, from 2:30 to 6:30. And then that night I would teach on whatever I read. And people didn't care what it was. They came. And we'd have people, and we charged $20. And I made $100,000 doing classes in my apartment, packed in a little apartment like sardines, 25, 30 people, in a 1-bedroom apartment in a little bitty rundown apartment complex.
Yeah.
And I did every night. People came, and it just kept growing. Then we started doing them in health food stores and in local places. And then I started doing tutoring for the classes. So whenever before a test, I'd give a tutoring because I had the best notes. I created a shorthand system. And then the students would gather. Instead of cramming, they would just come and I would do a review. And I'm the one that got the benefit out of it because teaching it, you learn it most. So I ended up in the top grades. I graduated at the very top of the school. And I got to teach and get paid. So I was winning and they were winning. So it it was inspiring. It was one of the most inspiring things that I get to do is share ideas that help people do whatever it is that they want to do in life. That's why I love doing that. And people go, what exactly do you do? Because I've spoken to the governments in different countries on change management, on economics, and all different topics, and or on leadership or something. And people always want to put you in a pigeonhole. Say, well, you're a leadership conference person, or you're this. I'm a human behavior guy. That's the best way to summarize it. I study anything that allows human beings to maximize their human potential. I don't care what it is. Physics, chemistry, mathematics, anything that will allow a human being to maximize themselves, I'm in on it. And I guess I've got a repertoire of information that's now more intriguing. And so I'll do, today I have 5 podcasts and a presentation and 2 countries. So I keep busy doing what I love doing.
You're so truly, truly blessed. That is amazing. And your doctorate is in is chiropractic, or doctor of chiropractic. I was pre-med by the time I was in University of Houston, I was pre-med. Sure.
And I was in the Honor Society by then. So this is just 2.5 years later, I'm now at the top. And this teacher, Dr. Kaminsky, said, well, John, you've got the top grades. You can go to anywhere in the world. Where do you plan to go? And I said, I'm going to chiropractic. And she goes, what? She was like, what? I said, because I don't believe there's an excess of drugs. I don't believe there's a deficiency of organs, or a deficiency of drugs and an excess of organs. I believe that we have a power inside our body to bring healing if we live wisely and eat wisely and learn how to master our minds and live by priority and, be intelligent about our life. And I was more interested in trying to educate people to give their power back instead of them dependent on something outside, external. There was 2 schools of healing, the Knightian school and the couldnt school in ancient Greece. One was the idea that there was all outside, outside things out there caused your problem and outside things saved your problem. And then there's another school that it's an internal job. Your perception, decisions, and actions determine your reality. And that you could change your perception, decisions, actions, and change your physiology. I was more interested in that. And chiropractic was the only one that had the philosophical view of that. So I went on there, and I'm so glad I did, because that was an amazing journey being a doctor there. And I went on to medical school and chiropractic college at the same time. I also did dentistry at the time and did astronomy at the time. So I was doing a lot of things at the same time, studying. Yeah. And I'm very grateful I did that, because the philosophy of that was so meaningful to me. I still believe that's a very important philosophy today, because I really believe that we have a power inside us to do things that most people don't honor and don't utilize. And that's what I love doing. I love helping people get their power back.
Wow. Well, in this film, How Thoughts Become Things, encapsulates that. And now it's a book. The same title, the same information in it, but now in a different format. And so it was really, they call it The Secret Beyond the Secret, or Secret Behind the Secret, but it's all the same thing. And as you were studying all of these different astronomy, medicine, dentistry, chiropractic, everything's connected anyway. And when we get to the heart of it and explode the heart of it, then everything else seems to radiate from that. So why not? So,
we have power. We have amazing power to do amazing things. And, some people give themselves the power. I would say, if you don't empower your life, any area of your life you don't empower, people are going to overpower you. If you don't empower yourself intellectually, you're going to be told what to think. If you don't empower yourself in business, you'll be told what to do. You don't empower yourself financially, you'll be told what you're worth. You don't empower yourself in relationships, you'll be doing honeydew stuff around the house. If you don't empower yourself in society, you'll be having misinformation and propaganda that runs your life. You don't empower yourself physically, you'll be told what drugs to take and what organs to remove. And if you don't empower yourself spiritually, you'll probably live in an antiquated, maybe a Ptolemaic model of geocentricity. So the reality is that you're here to empower your life. And education, true education, is awakening inside you the creativity of contribution and service that's deeply meaningful, that comes from the heart, that you want to contribute. and doing it in a sustainable, fair exchange way where you're compensated, so you're prosperously able to be fulfilled doing what you love, exemplifying what's possible as human beings. And so I'm a firm believer in helping people learn and strategize how to run their life in such a way that allows them to go and do something they absolutely love to do. So they don't have Monday morning blues, Wednesday hump days, thank God it's Fridays, and week friggin' ends. They have a life that they're inspired to do, where they can't wait to get up in the morning and be of service, so people can't wait to get the service. And they do it in a way where there's prosperity for them. And so How Thoughts Become Things, the movie, is a magnificent summary of the principles that allow people to take command and mastery of their life. And what your innermost dominant thought becomes your outermost tangible reality. And your innermost dominant thought is an expression of what you value most. And if you are congruent and know what you really truly value and what that one thing is that you want to commit and call your calling in, you will do extraordinary things and shine, not shrink. And so, yeah, I'm very much involved in taking command of your thoughts, your vision, what you say to yourself, what you feel. And that's exactly what Paul Bragg said to me when I was 17 years old. He said that, what you say to yourself, what you see for yourself, what you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, the actions you take towards the daily objectives that you have will determine the destiny and the trajectory of your existence. Mm-hmm. And so true. And I think Doug has captured that in this movie, and people deserve to be reminded of it and inspired to go and fulfill it.
Yeah, it's a very, very accessible film because it's very accessible messages told by just people who are on fire inside, like yourself. So it's all very accessible, very, implementable. I do want to circle back to Paul Bragg, who I was not familiar with. I had to do a quick lookup of his name. He was instrumental in health food, detoxification, healthy living, positive thinking, way back when, before there were very many people doing this at all. That's pretty
well. He helped initiate 1,000 health food stores across America to try to get people to have a healthier diet. Jack LaLanne, who was a massive influence in America in fitness and health, which when I was 2 years old, my mom was watching Jack LaLanne. I was watching Jack LaLanne on TV. Jack LaLanne's life, he was a pimple-faced kid that was a weakling, beaten by bullies as a kid, and he went to a program like Paul Bragg and changed his life and became an enthusiast. And Patricia Bragg, who was the daughter of Paul Bragg, ended up being close friends with Jack LaLanne until he passed. And the story of Jack LaLanne was very similar to mine when I met Paul Bragg. And Paul Bragg impacted Steve Jobs and Gloria Swanson and the Kellogg Corporation and Donald Trump even. I mean, he influenced, I think we counted 139 celebrity people who impacted their health because of him. He was a very inspired guy, right, and very enthused about, living wisely when it comes to, walking and thinking wisely and drinking fresh water and breathing deep air and, fresh air. And things that are common sense that people are just overlooking, and eating real foods and not junk. And it influenced my life. I'm 67 now, and I'm still going. I've got a very intense schedule, and I think that's partly was inspired by that insight and things he shared with me.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You. as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
Right. You were certainly very fortunate to find that level of mentorship and someone who believed in you and wanted you to thrive as well at that tender age. You also have another story of meeting someone else who was influential for you.
When I was younger,
Yes.
the gentleman on the street.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was hitchhiking from Houston, Texas, it's an interesting journey. I left Houston, Texas on the west side of Houston and hitchhiked out to first Austin. And there was a chick that I had met on the beach and I had her contact details and I contacted when I got to Austin. We had the evening together and we decided to go to the Armadillo Club where Ted Nugent was playing. And this is a 60s rock band kind of thing. And then afterwards we hung out with Ted Nugent in the back. So my first night out hitchhiking across to California was with Ted Nugent. I can't get much better than that as far as a rock kid. Then next night I ended up falling asleep and I got caught in the Piggly Wiggly truck and got drunked off in the middle of nowhere and I had a rough thing there. But eventually I made it to El Paso, Texas. And when I was hitchhiking to El Paso, Texas, I had a headband on and I was getting long hair and I had a surfboard with me and a little duffel bag. Looked like some hippie, with a flowered shirt. That was the thing in the 1960, 68,
Of course.
And all of a sudden in Texas, there were cowboys there, a lot in West Texas. And cowboys and surfers weren't the best friends,
Right.
One, they called them rednecks and whitenecks. And all of a sudden, 3 of them lined up in front of me on the sidewalk and were going to give me a bit of a challenge. And they lined up and I didn't know what to do. I just started growling and barking like a wild animal at them because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't outrun them. They were bigger than me and I had a surfboard. And so I just acted like a wild animal, which diffused them. Right. And they were like going, this guy's probably on drugs or something, And they moved aside and there was a guy on the street corner leaning on a lamp who saw it happen and was just laughing. He couldn't even hardly stand up. He was laughing so hard because the way I handled him. And he comes over to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he said, Sonny, that's the funniest dang thing I've ever seen in my life. You took care of them cowpokes like a pro. I said, well, I'm blessed, sir. I didn't know if they were going to hurt me. He said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And I said, no, sir. Can I get you a Coca-Cola? And I said, yes, sir. So we went in this little malt shop and on these swivel stools. And he said, are you a runaway? And I said, well, sort of. I got a ride to the freeway. I didn't run. And I said, I'm going to California. And he says, well, you look kind of funny out here with a surfboard, but I understand if you're going to California. Are you through with your Coke? And I said, yes, sir. He said, then come with me. I want to teach you something. And there's a part of me that was a little bit hesitant about that. I didn't know this old guy.
Right.
It felt a little odd. But I just figured, okay, I can outrun this guy. So we walked 2 blocks, another 2 blocks, up these steps to the downtown El Paso library. And there's a lady there at the front entrance, and he said to her, can you watch this young man's stuff here when we go in the library? And she says, I can, indeed. So I left my stuff there, and that was everything I owned. So I was a little leery about it, but I thought, okay, behind the desk with this lady, she's not going to know anything to do with this. She's not going to run away with a surfboard. I went down some steps, up some other steps, sat down at a table. He sat me down at this table. He went off to the bookshelves, came back. He put 2 books on the table. Then he came and sat catty corner in the corner of the table with me. He was about 62 years old. I later looked and found out who it was, and he was about 62 at the time. And he said, young man, there's 2 things I want to teach you. And you got to promise me you never forget these 2 things. I said, yes, sir. He said, number 1, don't ever judge a book by its cover. It will fool you, young man. He says, you probably think I'm some old guy on the street, some old bum on the street. But young man, I'm one of the wealthiest men in the world. I have everything that money can buy. I got planes and businesses and homes, yachts, you name it, I got it. He said, so don't ever judge a book by cover because it'll fool you. I said, yes, sir. And then he grabbed my hand and stuck it on those two books he brought from the thing. It was Plato and Aristotle, two great Greek philosophers. And he said, young man, you learn how to read. You learn how to read, boy, and you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, philosophia, because there's only two things that nobody can take away from you, young man, and that's love and wisdom. They can take away your possessions. They can take away the people in your life, but they can never take away your love and wisdom. That's something nobody can take. That's something you have. So you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, young man. You understand that? Yes, sir. He promised that? Yes, sir. He put those two books on the bookshelves, and then led me out the street and said, now that's the direction to California. Don't forget what I told you, boy. And I didn't know who that guy was till many years later. The man turned out to be Howard Hughes. He was doing an El Paso natural gas deal there for a brewery he was building. Just happened to catch me.
Wow.
When I found that out, it just got chills in my spine. I went, whoa. And I saw the picture of it. And that only occurred because many years later, I found out and met with Natalie Hughes, one of the family members of the Hughes family. We puzzled to put the puzzle pieces together. Mm-hmm. But what it was is he was saying it. Now today, my cufflinks say love and wisdom. I just finished doing a seminar 5 days long on 200 of the greatest philosophers that ever lived. Wow. And presented that for 5 days on the love of wisdom and wisdom of love. I signed all of my signatures at the end of every email, love and wisdom. So you never know what a little message might do. And I didn't know the significance of that at that moment, really. But I realize now that that was a great contribution in my evolution. So I'm a firm believer that anything you can't say thank you for is baggage. Anything you can say thank you for is fuel in life. So you want to look back at your life and see how everything is ultimately on the way, not in the way. And everything is a feedback to your authenticity and your mission. Whatever that authentically is, whether it's raising a family, building a business, doing a social cause, or doing something of fitness, that doesn't matter. But whatever is most deeply meaningful, most inspiring, most authentic to what your calling is, everything in your life is guiding you to that objective. Look at it through those eyes, and you'll be grateful for your existence. And when you do, you'll awaken your executive center, the forebrain, where you'll have foresight, not hindsight, and you'll end up leading your own pathway. We're not here to live in the shadows of anyone else or put people on pedestals or pits. We're here to put them in our heart so we can do a service to them in equanimity and equity. So we end up having the fuel of opportunity constantly before us to do something amazing with our own existence. And so I'm a firm believer that we want to hear it. We're here to shine, not shrink, and do something of contribution. And I love doing that. So I do that every day of my life, and it's very inspiring. And some people don't get that until much, mature levels. But once they do, their lives change. Mm-hmm. So yeah, how thoughts become things, and any of those constructs are important principles that people sometimes need to be a good reminder of.
Right. And I think we need to change the title of this episode to Radiating Love and Wisdom, because that's the...
Well, I'm okay with that. I can handle that one. But I'm a firm believer that the essence of our existence is love and wisdom, and it's the balance of all opposites. And everything that's alive is homeostatic. It's trying to bring a homeostatic, so it brings order out of chaos. And even though entropy is chaos out of order, in negentropy, life physics is order out of chaos. So when we discover the hidden order in our apparent chaos, we evolve forward, and we do extraordinary things. So, and that's basically chaos in disorder just means missing information. When we're infatuated with something, we're conscious of the upsides and unconscious of the downsides. When we're resentful of something, we're conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides. But when we love something, we're conscious of both sides. And so if we ask questions that make us fully conscious, and we can integrate our unconscious and conscious at the same time and see the pairs of opposites simultaneously, as Wilhelm Wundt described, we liberate ourselves from the chaos and discover the hidden order and the meaning, and we extract the meaning out of our existence, and we gain fuel of opportunity to do something extraordinary. And we do something that's contributive and something inspiring and exemplary. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has a great leader and a great inspirer inside. They just haven't wakened it up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. And yes, as you said, you teach this continually. And your website has not only a free class, but it has all of your online classes on it, which is just amazing. I know you also teach something you call the Demartini Method. Can you tell about that just briefly?
Yep. The Demartini Method is something that started back when I was 18.
Wow.
When I was 18 years old, I was just starting to read literally 18 to 20 hours a day. Once I learned how to read, I never stopped. And my mom asked me for my 19th birthday, a few weeks before my 19th birthday. She said, what do you want for your birthday? It's coming up, and for Christmas, because it's coming up. So I was born on Thanksgiving Day. My birthday's on Thanksgiving this year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
My girlfriend's flying in from Turkey to join me on that day, so it's going to be great.
Flying in from Turkey to have some turkey.
Pardon me?
Flying in from Turkey to have some turkey on your birthday.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, exactly. But so it's right before my birthday, and she turns to me and she said, son, it's coming up on your birthday and it's Christmas. What do you want for your birthday and for the holidays? What do you want for your birthday?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth by the greatest minds who ever lived. And she looked at me and she said, are you sure you don't want a t-shirt? I was thinking more like a t-shirt. I said, no, Mom, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth by the greatest minds who ever lived. And she goes, okay, let me see what I can do. She called her brother, Uncle Ralph, who was once a professor at MIT, chemist, physicist, very bright guy, mathematician. And he has a gift. I don't know where he got him. I don't know if it was his library or how he did it. But he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates on a flatbed truck down to the house. And they unloaded them onto the ground. And with a crowbar, I went out there and opened them up and carried as many as I could carry into my room, and filled my room with thousands of books, with a little yoga mat in the middle to face the sun for the sun salute in the morning. And I just went to work. I just started devouring them. And one of the books, there were 2 that stood out immediately, but one of the books was The Discourse on Metaphysics by Leibniz, the German philosopher, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. And in the very beginning, in the very first chapter, very first page, very first paragraph, he basically said something that Voltaire attacked in Candide in his satire on him, but said that there is a divine perfection, a divine beauty, a divine love, a divine order, a divine perfection that no human being could improve upon. And when human beings that realize that and they understand that, their lives are changed forever. And I don't know why, I started bawling. I started reading and I said, something about this is something so meaningful. He said, we can't improve it. There's a hidden order in things. Maupertuis, the mathematician, later said that there's a law of efficiency, and there's an underlying efficiency that we don't know. And when we finally come to the realization of how things are really structured, not as we hope or wish they were or wonder they're structured, but they are structured, there's a magnificent hidden efficiency in the universe. So that inspired me, and I said, I want to know what that is, and I want to make a system to help people get that, because I just know that will change people's lives.
Yes.
And then I came across another book that was The Principles of Quantum Mechanics by Paul Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, on the person who created particles and antiparticles. And when I read that, and I'm talking about, I had to go get a specialized math symbol book. I had to go through a whole bunch of stuff to read paragraph by paragraph this book. It was a tedious book. But when I got through that book, and I went through that, it said if you take a particle and an antiparticle, a positron and an electron, a positive and negatively charged particle, and put them together, you can make light. And I thought, in my naivety at that time, because I was just starting on this journey, I thought, I wonder if you took positive and negative emotions and put them together at the simultaneity, would you have enlightenment? And Wilhelm Wundt, one of the earliest psychologists, said that simultaneous contrast awaken fullest potential. And so I started on with those two pieces of work and started going down the rabbit hole in psychology and sociology and theology and philosophy and physics and mathematics and neuroscience. And I taught neurology and anything I could get my hands on to try to figure out how to maximize those integrative states in the mind. I found out that the brain is an integrative structure. It takes sensory information that are monosynaptic reflexes that are black and white, and gradually with associations turns them into gray and integration. So we have at the very top, unconditional love. At the very bottom, we have impulse and instinct for survival. And so the brain is doing what it can to help us love and to have wisdom. And so we just said, how do I maximize the brain function? So that's why I want to know, how do I maximize brain function?
So the brain actually creates this.
It's an integrator.
It's an integrator.
The brain's an integrator. As you go up the brain, you get more associative fibers, interneurons, which then allow you to have gray instead of black and white, and allows you to have love instead of emotions that are polarized. So the brain is doing everything it can to maximize our potential. It's amazing.
So there it is, the human behavior specialty there, and how to create that neuroplasticity. I can't even speak. The neuroplasticity that we need to form new neurons and neural pathways, right? Did you set out to understand the brain, or did you set out to understand the behavior that creates that?
No, when I wanted to study neurology. By the time I was in professional school, I was taking neurology classes, and and the teacher said, "Here's the textbook," and I remember the very first test I took with Dr. Nash. We had 50 questions. You get 2 points per question. And I didn't read the textbook. I read 10 textbooks. I devoured 10 of them. And so when you put the answers there, it said A, B, C, D, or E. You have to pick an answer. And I would say E according to so-and-so, F outdated, has no application. G, I put all these answers on there, and the guy failed me. And I went into his class and I brought in about 40 something books on neurology. And I said, "You can't fail me." He's like, "You can't answer questions like that." I said, "I'm going to challenge every one of those answers. And I'm going to confront you on that, because who are you to tell me I can't do that?" And I basically confronted him, and I held every one of those answers and I showed him that they were accurate answers. And he looked, he says, "I thought this was a joke." I said, "Sir, I didn't come here to go to school for a joke. I came here to learn. And I came to learn and master neurology." And he said, "I misunderstood what you did." And then 3 weeks later, he had an affair with one of the girls in the class, and he got caught for it, and he got temporarily suspended. And he said, "John, can you teach the class?" So I started teaching neurology back when I was 23, and it was fantastic. I got to do the neurology class. So I've been studying neurology since 23, pretty well before that, but I love neurology.
Oh my goodness. Well, and of course the classes that you teach now are not medical classes, or perhaps I'm mistaking that, but it seems like they're not medical classes. They're not for people in medical school. So how do you teach just the normal people like me this neuroplasticity?
Well, I have a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, medical students, and chiropractors and osteopaths. I still do classes on physiology. I just finished it yesterday. Literally last night at 9:00, I wrote a textbook on 1,000 health conditions and the psychology underlying them. And we just had health professionals on it. So I still teach those classes. Yes. Oh. But I also teach classes to open publics. I still do health professionals. I still talk at universities sometimes. But I'm also doing the public talks. So it doesn't matter. Anybody that listens to me, I'll do presentations for. I'm grateful for. I've talked to 5-year-olds and 12-year-old kids in school about holding on to their dreams. And I've talked to, astrophysics professors. It doesn't matter, because I believe that if you really study really hard and you really learn your stuff and make sure you got something worthy to say, people are willing to learn it. So it all applies to human behavior.
Yes, it all applies to human behavior and really elevating it and mastering it. mastering our own behavior. That's probably the biggest challenge that we could have, is mastering our own mind. So
Yeah.
when you're
So,
teaching,
I was just saying that go ahead.
oh no, I was saying, when you're teaching people, where do you have them start? Like, where does someone start with this?
Very simple. Every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most to least important in life, that's unique and fingerprint specific to them. And finding out what that hierarchy of values is first. Because whatever's highest on your value, you spontaneously act upon. You don't need external motivation to get you to do it. And whatever's low on your value, you need external motivation to get you to do it. I spontaneously research and teach, no problem. But you'd have to motivate me to cook or drive. I haven't driven a car in 32 years. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I live on a ship. I'm right now in Jamaica. Right outside the window is Jamaica.
Oh,
I'm sitting here in a tropical thing on my ship, and I don't do anything. I delegate everything. All I do is research, write, travel, and teach. That's it. Nothing else. But I learned a long time ago, if you're not doing the highest priority things and you're doing low priority things, you're going to devalue yourself. If you do the highest priority things, you're going to spontaneously be inspired every day to do what you love doing. So first, identify what your values are and find out what's really meaningful, so you're not subordinating to the herd mentality and borrowing visions of other people and trying to be somebody you're not. Why be second at being somebody else when you can be first at being you? So that's the first place. Find out what's really, truly, intrinsically important to you, so you can start structuring your life by priority and giving yourself permission to have an intrinsic drive to do it. So you don't need motivation, because motivation is a symptom, never a solution for human beings. Mm-hmm. It's a symptom. Mm-hmm. I don't need motivation to do what I do. And anything I need motivation to, I delegate. I delegate to somebody else who would love to do that. They're inspired to do what I want to delegate. And then I get on to doing what I love to do, and doing it in a way that serves people, so there's sustainable fair exchange and compensation, so I can generate the income to pay for all the delegations, so I'm liberated instead of bogged down doing something of got tos and have tos and must and shoulds and supposed tos and have tos and all the imperatives that most people trap their lives with. They're living by duty instead of inspired design. So I'm a firm believer in prioritizing your life. And that's the first place to start, finding out what you really value, finding out what's really, truly meaningful to you, and then structuring it and finding a way of doing that in a way that serves people and solving problems for humanity, doing that. That is powerful and liberating.
Yes. Wonderful. Oh my gosh, wonderful. So your classes are all available online. Of course, you do events and travel and do all kinds of, and thank you so much for being on this podcast. I realize that this is very small potatoes in terms of all of the things that you have going on, and I do appreciate your time to be here. And I do want to direct our listeners to your website, which is drdemartini.com. All of your upcoming events, your master class, all of your online courses, they're all here on your website. And then, of course, the film, How Thoughts Become Things, is available online. And now the book, which is available wherever you get books. So is there anything that you feel we have left uncovered, unsaid, that you would like our audience to know?
Well, whoever's out there who's listening, the magnificence of who you truly are, the real authentic ontological being that you exist as, is more powerful, more profound, more magnificent than any imposed fantasies that you might try to take on. So you want to give yourself permission to shine from that authentic self and have the courage, the heart, to be yourself in a world that wants you to fit in. Stand out. You can't make a difference fitting in. You can only make a difference standing out. So have the courage to allow what your intuition and inspirations are yearning to express in the unique contribution you have. And don't try to please all the people around you by subordinating to them. You can fulfill their lives by inspiring them with your service that's unique, but don't shrink. Because, as The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, the textbook, he talked about conforming to the masses instead of actually being an individual hero. You'll make a difference. If you're the misfit and you're the square peg in a round hole, and you do something that's meaningful and inspiring, you may be ridiculed, you may be violently opposed, but you will eventually be self-evident. There's a gentleman here that I was having dinner with the other night who created gene therapy in the 80s. He was ridiculed, he was opposed, they were shut down, they did this. But on the front cover of November edition of Scientific American, it's now being acknowledged as one of the great contributions, and 2 Nobel Prize winners coming out of it. And all I know is that he did not give up on his dream. Inside you is a yearning to do something extraordinary. Allow that to be more powerful than any obstacle. I always say there's nothing mortal that can interfere with a mortal visionary. Be a mortal visionary. Create your legacy. Do something meaningful. And don't sit there and be second at somebody else. Be first at being you. And watch what happens. Amazing stuff will automatically. People, places, things, ideas, and events in your life start synchronizing around you to help you fulfill authenticity. The whole world is helping you become you. The real you, not the false you.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much for that. I feel like that was really speaking to me, but I know that it's going to be very helpful for everybody who's listening right now. And Dr. Demartini, once again, thank you so much for being here with me. And I just wish everybody could get a little bit of what you have to offer. So I would advise everybody to read your books, look at your blog, follow you on social media, and go to your website, drdemartini.com.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.